Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another episode of Matt's Mind. This week is week 28. Yes, I know we missed last week. I was sick. I'm still like a little bit congested, so I debated on skipping another week because I kind of sound weird, but it's okay. We're back here. If you guys are unfamiliar with this series here on the channel, essentially it's a Q&A. If you guys have a question or anything like that for me, comment down below. And of course, subscribe with the bell icon clicked. This Matt's Mind might be a little shorter than usual. I do not know. Whatever the time is, that's what it is. And let's go ahead and get started. First question comes from Rise of the Brick. The best Star Wars character you want in LEGO that hasn't been made. This is a tough one. I'd really like to see, even though this isn't my favorite character, I think it'd be super cool to see a Dexter minifigure from episode 2, like the diner. That would be super cool to see. I'd also like to see Rebel Friend in an official LEGO set at some point. That would be really cool. I think in all honesty, all my favorite Star Wars characters have already been made into LEGO. So if you guys have a favorite Star Wars character that hasn't been made in LEGO yet, comment down below. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Next question here comes from Daniel Rose. Would you rather have LEGO 5s or LEGO Phase 2 Cody? I think I'd rather have a Phase 2 Cody. I think when you think of like the two iconic sort of leader position clones, you think of obviously Captain Rex, and then you think of Commander Cody. Since we have never gotten a Phase 2 variant of Cody, I'd like to see that. I know there is rumored a General Grievous speeder bike set coming out, I think in either April or summer or whatever the wave is. Now, if that rumor is true, I hope that we do get a Phase 2 Commander Cody. That'd be pretty cool, but I'm gonna have to wait and see. Keep my fingers crossed. Next question here comes from BrickWiz. What do you think about the rumored AC18 December instead of a Republic gunship? Well, we are getting a UCS gunship at some point, so whether you like the playset or whether you like it to be a display set, at some point we will be getting a gunship down the road. As far as the AT-AT goes, I know it's like the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, so I definitely see why LEGO wants to do another AT-AT, but at the same point, this is going to be the 4th one we've gotten so far, and I don't know, it's just something I really did not care for. I'd much rather get something new that we haven't seen before. I'm not really interested in another playset AT-AT, which is probably gonna be like 150 bucks. So next question here from Joshua Weber. Would you ever build a Lord of the Rings mock? I've actually always wanted to do something like that. You guys know my buddy Blaine. He has this massive Lord of the Rings army, and the only thing stopping me from doing it is obviously lack of minifigures. Lord of the Rings as a theme has been out of LEGO's current production for a very long time now, so the minifigures are super expensive, all that kind of stuff. I'd love to build a Helm's Deep. I've always been a pretty big fan of Lord of the Rings. In fact, I'd say the big 3 like movie series, fictional series that I have grown up with would obviously be Star Wars, Harry Potter, and Lord of the Rings. So I'd love to do Lord of the Rings at some point. Minifigures are just so dang expensive, and I honestly don't know if I'll even have the time, so I do want to. Realistically, will I be? Most likely not. Next question here comes from Cult of Kristensen. If you decide to start a podcast, what guests will you have on? If any, will you have any co-hosts? And if so, who? What topics? And will it be weekly or monthly? So I've actually been seriously debating on starting a podcast. I've reached out to, actually, I don't even think I've reached out to anybody about this yet. I do want to start a podcast though. The ideal setup for me would be in-house, obviously having like a table, 3-4 microphones for, you know, co-hosts and guests. But obviously, me being so far away from a lot of other content creators will make that a little bit difficult. But so to answer your question, what guests will I have on, if any? I'll definitely have guests at some point. If I do start a podcast, it'll be probably once a week, and maybe every other week we can have a guest on, stuff like that. As far as co-hosts go, I would definitely want at least 1 co-host, maybe even 2. People that come on the top of my mind, obviously Rich Boy J, Jalen, you guys know David from Solid Brick Studios. Also another great talkative person is Matt, Bricktail Studios. So I have a lot of people that I would be thinking about for co-hosts on a podcast. I don't know when exactly it'll come into fruition. I guess we'll just sort of have to wait and see. And then what topics will we discuss? We'll probably talk about obviously LEGO, Star Wars, anything like that related, but I want the podcast to be a side of me that you guys don't see too often. A couple of weeks back, or actually over a month back, I did a real life Q&A with a couple of my real life friends, and the response to that video was super awesome. So I would think that yes, we talk about LEGO and Star Wars and YouTube and all that kind of typical stuff, but I'd like to dive into some of the maybe more real life nitty gritty, not YouTube, not LEGO related stuff. So we'll see. It's a really rough idea at the start right now, but I'll see what it moves into, and hopefully as soon as possible. The next question here comes from Forever Lego Studios. Continuation of the Cloud House questions. I love Cloud House questions. If a bunch of us moved into a house, what should the large mock be? As in a giant Scarif or Genosis, etc. So this is referring to last week's question of a Lego clout house, a content house, where I'd say I'd have all the big mock builders in-house, me, Jay, David, Chris, and people like that. I think if we all got together, we definitely want to do something Clone Wars for a collaboration, or Scarif. I think you said Genosis or Scarif. Those would probably be the two top ones for us, because I know Jay's always wanted to do Genosis. I really want to do Genosis. I know David would always be down, and Chris would always be down. We've also talked about vaguely revisiting Scarif and building just like this giant layout, super detailed. So you kind of answered your own question in your question. Scarif and or Genosis would be probably the first two ones in the lineup. The next question here comes from Brick Kid. What position did you play in baseball? Nice non-Lego Star Wars related question. So I first started out playing baseball in the outfield. I was usually center field. Then once I got into high school, they transitioned me into the infield. I ended up playing third base for pretty much my entire high school career. I would, substitute in outfield every now and then if it was needed, but I was mostly a third base starter. I was a 3-year varsity player from sophomore year, junior and senior year, so mostly was in the infield at third base, which is a super fun position. Really quick, need to be really fast, need to be really agile, but it's a really fun position to play. I did also dabble in like pitching and catching, trying this stuff out. I was never too good at it, so I stuck to what I was good at, swinging a bat and playing third base. The next question here from Comic Bricks. When making a video about analyzing new Lego Star Wars sets, where do you get the pictures from that avoids any copyright strikes? So essentially, it's a little bit of a tricky game here when you're talking about copyright strikes or claims, stuff like that. Usually if it has a watermark that says confidential, obviously you want to steer away from that. My general rule of thumb is if a recognized Lego fan media posts about it, so for example Brick Set, or for example the Brick Fan, or even Beyond the Brick, like if they post about it, usually to me that means I have the all clear. Sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes I'll get videos out before RLFMs, and honestly it's just a game of risk. Usually if it's leaked on like a weird third-party website, I definitely advise you be careful. But if it's coming from, again, a website like the Brick Fan or Brick Set or Beyond the Brick, I would say more so than not you'll be okay. Obviously take that with a grain of salt. As long as Lego never officially announces it on their website or on their news press release, obviously there is always that risk, but you just have to be careful where you pick and choose what content you're using and where you're getting it from. Just be smart about where the affiliation of the source of information in relation to Lego. The next question here comes from Flamehead X27. How long do Bricklink orders usually take to arrive to your house? That entirely depends on where the store is located. So I'll have stores that are located here in Jersey and they'll get here next day or 2 days after I order. I'll have orders coming all the way from California, which is on the other side of the United States, and that'll maybe take upwards of a week. Sometimes I've even ordered pieces from overseas in different continents that could take upwards of a month. It really just depends on where the store is located, how fast they say they ship in the terms and services, and that's pretty much it. There is no set defined like this, it'll take this amount of days for a package to arrive. It just totally depends on where it's coming from. The next question from TGB Kid. For how many years were you in your Lego Dark Ages? I would say I stopped Lego right around 6th grade, and then I picked it back up my senior year. So just about 6 years I was in it, and it kind of basically as soon as I started taking baseball a little seriously in sports, I dropped Lego. And then as soon as like my baseball thing was kind of dwindling down, senior year was my last year playing an official game of baseball, I then sort of picked back up Lego. So 6th grade, baseball went up, Lego went down. Senior year, baseball went down, Lego went up. So about 6 years I was in my dark age, although I really didn't consider it a dark age because it wasn't like I wanted to build but didn't want to or wasn't motivated. I literally just didn't like think of Lego for those 6 years. So it wasn't like an official a stereotypical dark age, but it was a dark age in the sense that I wasn't touching any Lego at all. The next question comes from Joachim Carlson. Hopefully I said that right. Have you considered traveling to Europe for conventions? I have entertained the idea. It's never been anything too serious, mostly because it's super expensive. Flights alone overseas anywhere outside the US are upwards of $400 or $500 plus room plus food, all that kind of stuff. So maybe when I'm older and also with my friends, we could all like take a big trip for like a week or two and go sightseeing in Europe and then like have 1 or 2 days for like a convention. But just going to Europe alone for a convention wouldn't make sense to me financially. Again, like I said, I like to make it like a vacation. So at this point right now, unfortunately, I don't see myself going to Europe, sadly, for a convention, but hopefully at some point down the road I will. And the last question here comes from Darth Jar Jar. What would you like to see if Clone Wars got 2 more seasons as it would have if it wasn't canceled? How far into Revenge of the Sith would you like to see it go? if at all. I would actually not like to see more Clone Wars seasons. I think them bringing it back and properly ending the series, lining up with the timelines, pretty ideal. I don't think there's any justification for the Clone Wars seasons to be coming back for season 8 or season 9. I think season 7, ending it with the Mandalore arc, obviously having, I believe it is rumored, or maybe this is even in the unfinished episodes. I don't know. This is not confirmed, but I'm assuming the current season that is being released of Clone Wars will end right up until the Battle of Coruscant. I think what I've heard is that that will happen. And as far as that goes, I don't think there's any reason for the Clone Wars to have a new season after that. It sort of fills that gap between episode 2 and episode 3. We have the Clone Wars in the middle to bridge that gap between those two pieces of content, where we learn a lot more about Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka and a whole bunch of other really cool people, and just overall the Clone Wars in general. So because after the end and the last episode of season 7, hopefully the Clone Wars will be non-existent. So I don't think we need another one. But thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Hope you all enjoyed. Once again, if you guys have a question, drop it down below. Drop a like on the video, and of course, subscribe to the channel with the bell icon clicked. That way you know as soon as these videos go out live. And you also might be able to see this little thing behind me here. It's called an axis. I've been working extremely hard on this bad boy for this week's episode, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But that's all we got for today, guys. Hope you all enjoyed. See you later. Take it easy. Peace.